Hello and welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian and this is Malorian Weekly. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is something that seems simple on the surface, but actually gets kind of deep when you really get into it. Now, this is a topic that came from one of you. I always love doing these. You know, I always ask what you want me to talk about. Sometimes I get like little trolly or meme things, and that's cool. But this one here I saw and I was like, wow. You know, again, when I first saw it, I was like, that's a simple one. But then I kind of thought a little bit more. And what that question is should Warmachine be competitive? Now, again, this is probably something where when you saw this in the thumbnail, when you heard me just speak it right now, you're probably just thinking right away, like either like, yes, of course, or maybe something else like, no, it should be fun, but you probably already have a set answer in your head. So my challenge during this video is to take your set belief right now and realize that it's not a straightforward thing, that we have options. And this is something we should be actively talking about because it means a lot for our game. So what we're going to be discussing in this video is, what does it mean to be competitive? What does it mean in relation to Warmachine? And then, knowing that, what should we do with it? What does that really mean for us using that within the game? So let's start at the very, very basics, which is just defining what it is to be competitive. You know, when I say Warmachine is a competitive game, what does that even mean? Well, to be competitive means that you want to compete. It's something you can compete at. If we say something is a competitive sport, it is something that you can compete at. Now, if you can compete at something, that means obviously there's a winner and a loser. So if we just keep it at that and look at Warmachine, is Warmachine competitive? Yes, it's something designed with scenarios and missions and win conditions, so it is competitive. I go up against somebody else, somebody wins, somebody loses, maybe you took too long and the TO just DQ'd you both, so you both lost, but either way, there is winners and losers at the end of every game, and so it is competitive in that sense. But what does it really mean then to actually be competitive? Well, in order to actually have something where at the end of the day you can be like, hey, you won and I lost, you need to have rules. And you need to be having to have rules that are solid enough that you basically can't just cheat, right? The idea that we're going to be playing this game by these rules, and now that we're both playing by the same sets of rules, whoever is the better player is the person who's going to win. So again, is that something that applies to Warmachine? Warmachine has a very tight set of rules, which allows you to basically play it to the best of your ability, which means then at the end of the day, the person that was the best skilled is the person that's going to win. Probably. We're going to get to that in a second. So is that Warmachine? Again, we can be saying that probably yes, that is what Warmachine is. Warmachine is competitive. But there's a little bit more to that too. I said that kind of for the best person is going to be winning a game. Well, the reason why it's kind of is because there's some other factors that come into this. One, we could be talking about game balance itself. The whole idea that, hey, you're playing this team and I'm playing this team. Well, this team's better than that team, so you have a handicap. You have an advantage going into this, right? Whatever it is, there's an offset there because of the choices you made. You took something that's inherently better so that when we match up, one's a cat, one's a mouse, I think we know which way this one's going to go. So that's something to be keeping in mind. So of course, the better game balance you have where everything is relatively equal, the less that is a factor. The other portion of this as well is going to be just luck. Right? Whenever you're dealing with something and there's dice and there's chance, well, that means that luck can be playing a factor. Now, of course, there's things you can do to be controlling that luck and trying to put it in your favor, right? But of course, it's always something that could go not in your favor. You know, all of a sudden that cat goes after that mouse, and once you know, it was at that same moment where, you know, it had too much or whatever, had a heart attack, had a brain aneurysm, cat dies. shouldn't normally happen, right? You do that fight a million times, that cat's gonna win almost all of them. But hey, in that one moment, it had a little health issue or something. That's it. Mouse wins. Okay, that's something that can happen. Now, this is not inherently bad. When we talk about the idea of game balance and chance coming into a game, that's also something that can add a little bit more to it. Depending on the type of player you are, you might have heard the things I just said and be like, ooh, that's awful. We need to eliminate that. Everything should be at equal level so that nobody has a superior force that's walking in, and the less luck that there is involved, the better. I mean, sure, there could be that one crazy time where the mouse beats the cat, but I'm not going to play this game unless that cat's going to beat that mouse 99.9% of the time, or whatever you want to go with. And then you're going to have people in other camps. Like I said, you're probably somebody out there with your mind already set and know that there's other people out there as well. The very idea of different armies being imbalanced is actually something that some people enjoy. Some people play things where they like the idea that they're playing the underdogs, or they like the ability to assess the playing field and be like, oh, the grass is greener over there. I need to go to that spot, whether it is or not, right? But, like whether it's one or the other, some people like that imbalance, right? Some people love that in Blood Bowl, where they would go into that and know that, like, man, this faction is garbage, but I'm going to try and do my best to make them win, right? And they enjoy that part of it. When I played in my fantasy game there for Games Workshop, I loved playing orcs because of the randomness and how silly it was. And I knew that I was taking a disadvantage playing them and trying to put in as much crazy wonky stuff as possible. But one, it made it more fun for me because it's all silly games, go, go, go. Who knows what they're going to do? But at the other time, it was also something where, I didn't have to worry if I lost because it wasn't something that could be blamed on me. Now, we also talked about the other side of things where people might like the whole luck part there, right? Just because it's something where there's dice involved, much like how I said with the orcs, where like, oh, who knows? I'll roll a dice. Who knows what happens? Some people enjoy having a little bit more randomness, having a little bit more like, oh, I can't believe that happened, right? If everything was set, right? If everything was set where there was going to be no odds whatsoever, everything was going to be assumed to be you roll the average every single time, well, you could probably look at a game and kind of systemize out a way to win every single time, right? If I have something with this advantage, I can go click, 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 get to this win. Or even if we say everything's even, well, still one of us is going to go first. So whoever goes first has the initiative, is able to get the board, determine what's going to be going well, where, that type of thing, right? So they're going to have that advantage in that case, but it's going to be kind of like mapped out and predetermined. And people don't like that. They like the idea of like, where's that damage going to go? Oh, I crippled your cortex. Oh, that changes everything. Or, oh, I got that spike and I killed that solo. Oh, wow, that changes everything. Oh, I can't believe you rolled double ones and this lived. Wow, that changed everything. And that's something we definitely have to think about. Like we were talking about in the beginning about competitiveness and the idea that, one person's trying to beat the other, but that was also assuming that's the only thing they wanted from the game is I'm going to walk away and I'm the winner. But there's people that are looking for those other pieces of it too, right? Where they're going into this and they're wanting something more wacky, or they're wanting something where they can ask around, be like, all right, what's the bad faction? I want to be playing that, right? Something like that. There's people who enjoy that too, and it's something we have to keep in mind with that. Now, with that, and thinking about that, where is Warmachine now? I would say Warmachine is in a spot right now where the rules are very, very tight. And when you're comparing one faction to the other, sure, it's not perfect. You always see those little tier lists out there of what's S tier, A, B, C, D, F type thing. And I mean, sure, you can kind of do a little bit of that, but it is still very, very close. I remember times playing earlier on where, I always say like Signar versus Minions in Mark II. The Minions player could just give up because you knew Signar was going to win almost every single time without even knowing what else was going on the table, right? It's not like that anymore. Everything's been done so well that even though there's always going to be a tier, they're a lot tighter and it's a lot closer. And I think of that compared to other games where some factions are just way better than other ones. And it's ridiculous, right? We're like, why would you ever play that one? It's trash. You got to play one of these two factions here because they got massive advantages, right? So definitely Warmachine is in a spot between the way that the rules are set up and the balance between the different factions, that it's really up there in the upper echelons. And even when we look there at the luck factor, luck is very much mitigated. Of course there's dice, of course there's some element of luck in it, but there's enough mechanics in there that it's controllable, right? You can be boosting things where you know the odds are low, casting spells to buff or debuff and move those odds in your favor. It's not just a plain old like playing war with cards and you're flipping a card and saying, oh, this time you beat me. Oh, now I beat you. Like, you have some control over it. And the more control you have over the probability, the less it's just based on regular luck. Always a factor, but I think Warmachine's done a lot to reduce it as much as possible. And so what we have then is Warmachine being in a position where it is geared towards being competitive. If you want a game that you can go into and be competitive at, Warmachine is currently perfectly set up for that. But should it be? Again, the question here was not, is Warmachine competitive? It's, should Warmachine be competitive? Now, on one side, you could be saying that, hey, you know what? There's something to being the main person in this niche of a market. We're going to go out there and we're going to say that, hey, if you're a gamer and you want to be at the top level of being able to compete and be able to say at the end of the day that I won because I'm the best, this is the game for you. And we could wave that flag and we could be grabbing players from all these other games where like, oh, you didn't like the randomness of this? Come on over. Oh, you didn't like how unbalanced that game is? Come on over. And then playing them this way. There is credit to that. However, as we already said, where there's other people that like other things, that also means that the more that we narrow ourselves to this is going to be the focus of this game, we're losing these other players. And it even goes past that, right? I think that it's at the point now where it's not only just losing the players where like, oh, I was looking for something more silly fun. I was looking for something where I could play more of the underdog and still have a good chance type thing or whatever, right? I think it's to the point that we're actually pushing away competitive players. Now that sounds crazy, right? I just said that this is the perfect game for competitive players. Why would I be pushing them away? Well, the reason why is because it is brutal for new competitive players to try and get into this game. When you have this system that is all geared to the better player will win the game, the problem is that the better player will win the game. So when you have this new player come in, they're going to lose, like they're not the better player. They're coming in and their knowledge of the game is not up to par. The way that they build their list is not up to par. Their choices in game is not going to be up to par. Their clock management, on and on and on. And so, of course, the other player is going to win. How long is going to last? A long time. Because no matter how far they go in, all the other old veterans are going to still have more experience than them. They either have to be someone that's going to be just, the stellar student that's going to learn everything and rocket ahead everybody else. Or they have to be in a spot where the veterans are falling out of love with the game and they're not keeping up with new rules and falling behind. Or maybe there's more new players coming in that they can then feed on themselves. But either way, what normally happens is that when they walk into this preset community of competitive gamers, they're going to lose. And again, remember, we already defined them as a competitive player. The way that they find enjoyment from the game is being able to compete with others and prove themselves by beating them. But when you lose over and over and over again, and it's been a year and you still haven't won a game, at some point, they're just going to lose hope and they're going to want to move on. Now, compare this to something else. Compare this to something else where maybe the game balance isn't great and that competitive player can be like, oh, this faction is like super good. Boom, I'm going to take that. I'm going to start getting some wins, right? And like I said, some people like that where like they see it that I'm using my intelligence to assess the field and take the best options. So they don't really feel like they're cheating or anything like that. This is a portion of them being competitive and proving their own self-worth in the fact they're able to assess what's the best options and then taking it. Or even going into a game where there's a little bit more randomness, right? If there's more random dice, it's more often that they might get those sparse wins, right? And even if they're only winning by luck, let's say 1 in every 4 games or 1 in every, whatever it is, they're winning games and it's giving them hope. Sure, it might be just luck, but it's still a win. It's something that can give them hope. Like, okay, something I did here was right. I did this positioning and this and this and this. Sure, it's really because they got lucky with this over here, but they can focus on everything else that they did tactically and then use that to basically springboard themselves into more motivation to keep on going. On the reverse side, when it's just like, oh, I lost again, this is my 20th game in a row I've lost, what did I do wrong? I think I did everything right. I'm not a dumb person. I did the best I could. Does this mean I'm never going to win? Does this mean that I'm just actually not good at this game? Does this mean I'm actually not an intelligent person? Maybe I'm just not good at games at all. Oh, maybe I should, you know what? This game looks fun. I should try this. That's what's going to happen. And that's what is happening. I've seen those people leave. I've seen people come in and know that from other games, these are top tier competitive players who are very strong and are very intelligent. And I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be great. They're going to be like a new flair in the community. The meta is going to shift. And then they come in and it's that 1 year, right? We always talk about in Warmachine, you usually get your butt kicked for a year. They get about 6 months into it and they're done with it and they go. So if that's what competitiveness is doing to Warmachine, where we're losing the people that are looking for the more silly fun, and we're losing the people that are even in here to be competitive, is it worth it? Should Warmachine be competitive? And this is where we're starting to get to a hard spot of what we do with this. Do we embrace it? Do we more so like, okay, no, we're going to stick to our guns. We're going to say Warmachine is the competitive game. You know, that's the whole attitude that used to be there, right? Play like you got a pair. This is the place you come to go down and put all your cards on the table, and there's going to be a winner and a loser. There's some issues with that phrasing, and I know that's why they took it out. But that whole idea, there's a reason why they kind of moved away from it. And I don't think it's actually working. Like, obviously, they moved it away because of the whole sexist stuff, but it's still just as competitive, you know? It's not there blatant in the rules anymore, where that's a rule in the rule book. However, it's still just the way the game is and how it's being played. So how is that really helping anything? We just talked about all the bad stuff that's happening. We can stick to our guns, but we have been sticking to our guns, and it's not really working out. maybe we need to double down. Maybe we have to say, like, you know what? This is not just a competitive game that you are going to enjoy if you come here, but we're going to celebrate it. We're going to start making, like, you know, like how there's like the WTC and the VTC. We're going to pump this thing up. We're going to publish this. Winners are going to be glorified. It's going to be like in Magic the Gathering where, you know, their names are huge. You can basically go in. It's going to be like you can earn money, right? People are going to go into tournaments, pay money to play, and all that. It's not going to be like prize support and lunches. No, there's going to be a big cash purse at the end for the winner. Everything's going to be based now on who's the winner, and there's going to be big, huge focus on like, ooh, this one because this person's great. This is the list they're going to be using, and we're just going to go all in. Super, super competitive. That's what this game is now. They could. I don't think they're going to. Privateer Press has kind of shown that they aren't really into that type of thing, right? Like they'll run their own conventions, they'll attend things, they'll do podcasts, but they don't seem like they want to give in and push that side. I think they already see that it's not working out for them. So what's the other option? Well, if the other option is we don't want to be competitive, how do we make it non-competitive? Do we now embrace making factions not balanced? Do we now say, you know what? Minions, they're going to be the crappy faction. Don't expect any good warlocks. We're not going to give them any Zorro pigs. We're not going to give them any cool themes where you can take other stuff. We're just going to leave them as garbage forever. Okay. Maybe we're going to say we're going to add more randomness, you know? All your 2d6 is now going to be 1d6 to really add that randomness. You can no longer boost things because we don't want you to have that control. Things are going to get wacky. There's going to be a whole bunch of like random things where like all your jacks, you roll a dice and like on a 1, they're going to like stall for a turn. And on a 6, they're going to charge forward for free, but they're going to charge whatever is the closest enemy model. There'll be no control there. You know, like you can do that. And that's going to start making it wacky fun. But is that going to still work out? Maybe it's something where you need to be adding in a new format. Maybe there'll be a silly format. And that's what it's going to be. We're like, okay, we have all these things. But if you want to be, you know, competitive, we have that for you. You can play Warmachine, regular Steamroller. But if you want to be silly, you can do this. But what would this be? And that's why I kind of feel that Privateer Press has already had this conversation, and they've already come to a solution. I believe that Privateer Press, during their whole time when they moved away from play like you got a pair and were asking these questions to themselves, I believe that's where they came up with the concept of Riot Quest. Riot Quest, something that's a little bit more silly, a little bit more random, a little bit more just focused on the fun. I think that's what they tried to do and saying, look, you can take the same models and use them in Riot Quest or use it in Warmachine. And there you go. Now, whatever you want to do, you can go either way. I don't think that's really panned out. I think most people that I've seen really just play just Warmachine or just Riot Quest. That little group that kind of goes both ways is kind of not there. But maybe that's even fine, right? That's still all these players that we're pulling into the Privateer Press umbrella, and there will be some crossover. Even though I'm not seeing that's very much right now, there is going to be some. And obviously, if I have in my hand all these models that like, oh, I have everything I need to play Riot Quest, sure, let's have a game. Other way around. Oh, I have all these models and they work in Warmachine. I just got to like buy this one little box with a caster and some jacks and I'm good to go. Yeah, sure, let's do this. I guess I'm playing Mercenaries now, right? Like, that type of thing is there. And so, that's maybe the way that Privateer Press went, that they're going to be having these two systems and they're working together. Does that solve everything? I don't think it does. I think, again, like I said, even though we can argue that there's some crossover and it's all underneath the same umbrella, we're still leaving Warmachine suffering. And I mean, we talk about an umbrella where there's all these things under here, and I don't know the financials of Privateer Press, but I would assume that the underneath this umbrella, Warmachine is more the elephant of the majority of the players, and Riot Quest is like the little mouse beside it, right? And are you going to lose the elephant for the mouse? You know, do you want to try and risk that? It would be better to try in some way to make these things work with Warmachine. But as I've been trying to really show as I'm coming back to this, typically when I do these videos, I have an answer at the end. I come to the end, I leave you through like saying, this is how it defines it, this is all the issues, and this is my solution at the end. I don't have a solution here. I honestly don't. This is something where I can say that competitiveness is distinctly hurting Warmachine. It is to a point that it is such a competitive game that it is hard to come in here and play it for fun. And even if you come in here and play it to be competitive, unless you're okay with getting your ass handed to you for a year, you're probably going to give up hope and leave the game. So we're in danger. I'm actually really interested to see what happens with this. I want to know what Privateer Press is going to do. I want to know what the players think are going to be doing with this. You know, you people watching this, I want to hear your comments down below about, do you think I'm crazy? Do you think that this is not even a thing? Or hopefully you agree with me that this is actually a big topic that we should be talking about. And what is the answer here? You know, one of the answers that I certainly hope that it's not going to be is that Warmachine's a lost cause, and we're just going to let that one sink. And then that's why Privateer Press has been starting up new products, right? Riot Quest. We also have Warcaster. We also have its D&D book, right? For Iron Kingdom's, you know, realms and all that stuff, right? Is that why they're pushing these things? Because they see their other boats sinking, right? I hope it's not that. And, you know, I'm the press ganger. I'm going to go and try and make this thing work as long as I can. As a press ganger, I try and do that balancing myself, right? When I'm running my tournaments here, I make sure that I alternate between one competitive one and one that's a fun format, whether it's, you know, silly rules, a team event, whatever. I make sure that I alternate back and forth so I can make sure that all these players are not only having a home, but it's a way where our players can be interacting with each other. Because I found before that if I only ran one or the other, that I kind of lost the other group. But when I alternate, they kind of take turns, and the people that want fun will still go to the competitive ones, and the people that just want competitive still go to the fun ones. So this is working. So maybe that's what we need to do. Did we just find our solution? Is our solution that our steamroller should alternate between a silly fun steamroller one year and then a competitive steamroller the next year? Or should it be something where steamrollers actually alternate more often? Maybe during the first half of the year, it's going to be competitive steamroller, and the second half of the year, the silly one will come out? Or is it just something that'll be offered all year long? And then us as, you know, press gangers and tournament organizers have them there in our hands in order to do this easier. I mean, I'm lucky that from me playing other games and other versions that I have these ideas of how I can run silly formats, but it's not really out there to be easily accessed. You know, if you're a new player that decides you want to take on the responsibility of being a press ganger, there's not the tools there. There's the steamroller kit, and that's it. So maybe that's it, where we need to have more packages out there to be ready for them to do these formats. And even though I might get some arguments of like, oh, well, Malorian, there's this and that there, I think we all agree that they're not really supported very well, or at least not advertised very well. So there you have it. Like I said, you know, this is one of those things where I'm sure most of you looked at the title and you're like, oh, this is an obvious one. This is going to be a 2-minute video. Sure, let's just listen to this one while I brush my teeth. But no, this is a very complicated and deep issue, and something where I don't know if there's a right answer. I don't even think that there is a right answer, and it'll just be interesting to see which way Privateer Press goes with it. So there you go. Thanks for watching. It's a wild world. I'm not saying any of this like Warmachine's dying or anything like that, but it's definitely a topic we need to think about. And then for us fellow, you know, press gangers out there, we got to actively work to solve this issue that we now know exists. All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye.